Hey everybody, it's Dave, and I know what you're thinking. It's like, Dave, you haven't made a video in a long time. Well, that's because I'm not teaching online right now. Last couple semesters I've been all in class and I've been wanting to make a video. And normally I talk about art. That's, what I do. I'm a teacher of art history. But today I'm going to talk about books because books are pretty awesome and a big part of my life. So I'm going to show you 4 books that I read this past year that I highly suggest. And I'm also going to do 4 books that I'm going to read this year. And, it's just, I'm choosing 4 just because it's a small enough number to where, I can talk about it in a quick video. I read a lot more than that. In fact, if you look around my home, there are books just stacked everywhere. I'm a huge reader and I'm very passionate about them. So the first book I want to share with you is Warren Buffett's Snowball. And is not really about, what we normally think of Warren Buffett as in terms of business. But it is more of a book about the way that his life went. And I just found it fascinating. I'm really into biographies. And in fact, I've got a copy of Desi Arnaz's biography right about there. And I plan on reading that later on this year. But I thought Warren Buffett's biography was great. There is some money stuff in there about how he ran his companies and, the idea of, his life and everything and how obsessed he was about it. But it really played out really as a story, and I really enjoyed that. It also is pretty long and dense. I mean, you're looking at, this is 900 pages worth of Buffett's life. And, it took me, with a pretty busy schedule, off and on, about 3 to 4 months to get through it. I'd read for a while, and then I'd stop and set it aside, and then I'd pick it up here and there. My next book that I would suggest is Alberto Manguel's book called Packing My Library. And this is a much thinner book. You're looking at maybe 130 pages. And if you haven't read Alberto Manguel, it's fascinating. This is a guy who I believe was from Argentina, possibly Brazil, and comes to America, goes to Europe, and is now coming back to America to live. But if you read The Library at Night, which is a book that came out a couple years ago, which is really where I would start off with, it is about him living in France and having this library that is just amazing, just, thousands and thousands of volumes. And it talks about really about his love of books. And in this last book, it is about him having to pack up that library, moving to an apartment in New York, and having to cull through his books. The books all going to storage, but the ones he wanted around him. And it was really, quite a good read, and it's a very quick read. Now, my favorite book of this past year that I read, maybe a children's novel, maybe not be, it is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And this is a book that I had never read as a kid. And it's like I had it. In fact, I've got the annotated version here, which is fantastic. I love the annotations, being a college professor. I love the facts behind the statements that are here. And it's not too long of a book. In fact, it read really, really quickly. It's just about 400 pages long. And it was a great story. In fact, one of the books I'll tell you about that I'm going to read this year plays off of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. But if you like an adventure story, it blew me away reading it. It was just fascinating. I looked forward to reading it every single day, and I was really sad when it ended. And anyway, I was really happy with that. My favorite read of 2018 was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Now, last night, I also finished another book. It's the very last one in this H.G. Wells compendium, The Time Machine. And again, it was written about the same time as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Contemporary writer. I was looking forward to it. I heard a lot of good things about H.G. Wells, and I was sadly disappointed. It was tough to get into. The characters themselves did not develop at all. It's really about this one guy's narrative about his time-traveling expedition, and it was very much one point of view and just his take on everything, and it didn't do anything for me. I guess the good thing is that it was a short book. It's about 120, 130 pages long, and it just, I was also looking at Scott, The War of the Worlds and The Invisible Man. Maybe I'll get to those, maybe I won't. I wasn't really thrilled with the book, and I didn't like the way it ended. So where I am looking at more Jules Verne, I'm not really looking at reading more H.G. Wells, at least not right now. There's plenty of other things to read. So 2019 is here. What am I going to read? Number one is The Botany of Desire, and I have had this book now for 17 years, 18 years, and I have started it before. I read the first chapter, and I put it down, and I was going to college at the time, and it just got moved aside, and I found it today doing some cleaning, and so I'm looking forward to reading it. And it's a really cool book about, because my background is not only art, but it's also horticulture. And so this book talks about the way that we've cultivated 4 specific crops, and that included potatoes, marijuana, tulips, and apples. And it's about how we cultivated them, or perhaps how they cultivated us. So it's really interesting, and the socio-economical impact of all those plants. And anyway, I'm looking forward to reading it. I've already knocked out the first chapter today, and or actually just the introduction. But chapter 1 will be tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. Other books I'm looking at reading this year. I told you how much I like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Jules Verne, The Mysterious Island. I can't wait to read it. It is, according to the annotations in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, it is the sequel, and Captain Nemo comes back in this book as well. And you can see the thickness of it. It is nearly 600 pages long. So that's going to be maybe something I read as I get into my summer break, maybe a spring break, but I'm really looking forward to reading that. I picked that up the other night over at Barnes & Noble. This one too, I thought was really interesting. I saw this at Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena, which is really my favorite place to go for books. It's called the Bar Harbor Retirement Home for Famous Writers and Their Muses. So I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait. Again, it just looked really interesting. And finally, this is a guilty pleasure. This is tough to find also. It's not something you're going to get at the bookstore. It's something that I actually used when I was in graduate school. When I was writing a paper, I forget what the paper was even on, but I needed to cite some World's Fairs. And this is the Historical Dictionary of World's Fairs and Expositions from its very beginnings in 1851 with the Crystal Palace on up to 1988. The author, John Feindling. Again, I used this in graduate school. I found this on eBay. I think I paid $10 or $15 for it. It's well worth it. It talks about every single World's Fair. And it's about 3 to 4 pages per World's Fair, and it talks about the dates it was open, what happened there, what significance that fair became. Anyway, really cool stuff, and again, something I'm just really looking forward to dealing with, because the World's Fairs had such an impact on America, on art, on industry. Anyway, thought it was really cool. I had a few moments, thought I'd do this video for you, And I'll probably do some off and on throughout the year of some different things, mostly about books, though. So hope you had a good New Year's, and look forward to seeing you soon.